So my name is Elena. I'm the admissions recruitment and admissions manager for EMBA Global program. What I do in this role is that I lead admissions and recruitment strategies, and I'm overseeing actually two programs, so EMBA Global and Sloan as well. I'm doing the CV reviews, interviews, building the whole pipeline for both programs. So I'm working with prospects, with applicants and admins as well in this journey. And just to give you a little bit of like snapshot of the class that we just recruited previously. So that started last year. So the average years of experience is usually 12 years of experience in the class, ranging from either 6 or 7 years, but they have like very, very strong profiles up to 15, 20 years of experience as well. We had 40 nationalities. So you can see about global, it is indeed a very, very global program. We have students coming from all over the world, and this makes it very, very diverse. Of course, the percentage of women is really important. As a school, we are trying as much as we can to get to that 50 mark and to have, the 50-50 balance between men and women. But across the leadership programs, EMBA Global, I think, is doing still fine with 30%, and we are hoping to increase this statistics even further in the next class. And we had 71 admits in total, amazing profiles, very diverse backgrounds, and they are currently doing, I believe, they're in the third term at the moment. And they came from 61 cities in total. Now, as you are aware, we have the EMBA Global program starting in May this year. And the next application deadline, which is actually the final deadline to submit the application, is on the 8th of March. So in case you are thinking to submit an application, my advice would be to do it as soon as possible, and not maybe to leave it on the last deadline, just because the last deadline is usually more competitive than the others. And also for you to have enough time to do the logistics and to manage the expectations. So just to go briefly through the application requirements, you will have to complete an online application form, which can be found on our website. It gives you the chance to go through all the details that you have to fill in, and also you can save it and go back to it in case you think something is missing. Then you will have to upload a CV and resume and to be up to date. Then you'll have to provide 2 references. One of them has to come from your line manager because, the line manager knows you very well. And this also gives us an indication that he's aware of the time commitment that is necessary throughout the program. And also company support letter, which has kind of the same reason. Then the essays are very important as well. The essays give the reviewer the chance to see your personal side, what makes you different from the other applications that we receive up to that moment. So please try, and put some effort and make use of the word count with those. And of course, as you might know, we accept all 3 tests, either GMAT, GRE, or executive assessment, but we do advise, in case you haven't done any of those, to take the executive assessment. And then the transcripts, which have to be, in case they're not like into an English, they're not translated into English, they have to get an official translation for those. And as some housekeeping rules, of course, this experience is shared today for EMBA Global specifically, but of course, everyone is more than welcome to attend, and you might find, some useful information about LBS as a whole. And this is a webinar format, so your camera and your microphone is not is disabled, but you are able to type, any questions you might have up to this point, and you can use the Q&A function for that. And I will be selecting now some questions at the end of the session. And my key speakers who will be joining today, they'll be able to answer to that as well. And with no further ado, I'm just gonna let Alberto and Akansha to present themselves. You can, Akansha, if you wanna start maybe, what class you have joined, what you're doing in the moment, and yeah.
Sure, thanks, Elena. So hi, everyone, I'm Akansha. I'm an associate partner at Bain & Company. I was an EMBA Global Americas and Asia, graduating in 2016, which now feels like a very, very long time ago. Prior to the program, I was actually originally a veterinary surgeon, and then I ended up working in an oil and gas company called BG Group, which has since been acquired by Shell. Then it was a FTSE 25 company, but it got acquired during the program for me. And so I moved to Bain during the program, have been there since then. And yeah, really excited to meet you all and talk to you all today. It was probably one of the most fun experiences of my life actually doing the program. So it's always really exciting to chat to folks who are interested.
Great. Alberto, would you like to go ahead as well?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Alberto Tono. And yeah, it's a long time as well, and not as long as for Akansha, because I graduated in 2019. So hi Akansha, good to see you again.
Hey.
So yeah, my background is actually an engineer background, and I studied aerospace engineering. I also have a degree in music, classical guitar. Not that many people know about that, but that's part of my, let's say, of my background, and definitely helped me a lot in life. I did my early part of my career was actually more technical roles. I've been project manager and project engineer for offshore wind and oil and gas projects. And then after the MBA, I moved to more, let's say, commercial and business development roles, which I'm still covering now. And it's a pleasure again to be invited today. So thanks, everyone, London Business School, for organizing this call today, and very nice to talk to you.
Great, thank you so much. That's great to have you, and thank you for joining. I believe the attendees as well will learn a lot of useful things from you. So this will be a question maybe for both of you, and Akansha, if you want to go first to answer to that. If you can just tell me a little bit more about your background, we'll know what you already mentioned what you're currently doing, and what have you done before you joined the program.
Sure, yeah. So when I joined the program, I was a project manager at an upstream oil and gas company. It's called BG Group. And but before that, as I mentioned, I've been trained as a veterinary surgeon and practiced as a veterinary surgeon for a couple of years. And so I think when I was at BG, I got to a point where I realized that I kind of really missed my healthcare roots, and I wanted to go back to those. And I thought that an MBA might be a really good way for me to support me in that career transition. In addition, having never really had any formal business training beyond what I'd learned on the job through experience, I felt, I think, quite lacking in confidence at one level, that I didn't have that knowledge. And I really felt like I was missing something, and I would very much appreciate the opportunity to learn some of the more technical content from a business perspective. And I also just felt that doing that kind of transition, I didn't really have much of a support structure in industry, as in I had a good set of contacts and network within the company that I worked in and previous places I'd worked. But beyond that, I didn't really have anything. And all my friends and colleagues from university were all vets. So, and many of them still were vets. So it just didn't really seem like I had really that much of a network. So I think for me, I joined the program very much with the intention to change career, change industry, to build some knowledge on business, and also to just build a bit more of a support network in that area. And so during the course of the program, so I made my decision very rapidly that I wanted to move. I did a huge amount of research at the beginning of the program, and I moved to Bain within about 7 months, or about 9 months. So I started in April, and I moved to Bain in January of the next year. So during the third term of the program, and yeah, and I've been there since then. Happy to talk more about that journey, obviously, but probably not just yet.
Oh, okay, of course, that's great. Alberto? Would you like to?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, well, my background was pretty technical. So first of all, there's always been, let's say, a theme within my professional career, which is offshore wind. So it's let's say an industry that is very dear to me. I started actually studying in 2008, and then moved to Germany to study that subject. Then Netherlands, and then I moved to the UK in 2010. And of course, I'm still here. And I felt like I always had this desire of, attending one of the best schools and program for MBA. So this actually accompanied me throughout my career. The beginning was involved. I also worked, for example, offshore in the middle of the sea, building platforms for oil and gas. So it's been quite, let's say, a dynamic environment at the beginning of my career. But then at a certain point, I really felt that call to attend one of the best schools in the world. And that's why I started actually getting information about the London Business School and Columbia programs, which for me at the time was a dream. I was thinking, well, you know what, never going to be able to attend that because the caliber of people is so high, so amazing. But then I attended one information session like you're doing now, and it became, let's say, all more clear that it was possible. It could become reality. And so the intention originally was actually to attend, to learn from the best talented group of people that could be my classmates, but also knowing that I could accelerate my career progress. And I don't deny as well the, let's say, the attraction of studying in different schools in different continents that adds to the travel side. So these are, let's say, the motivations as well.
No, great. Yeah, no, that's great. It is something that I think all the prospects are interested in. And it's the premium program that we usually promoted because we have two brilliant schools, LBS and CBS. And it is, yeah, I think amazing to get, the expertise and the knowledge from both schools at the same time. So what were the expectations when you actually joined Akansha? Well, what did you expect from the program?
Goodness, as in what were my objectives, or what was I expecting the experience to be like?
Yeah, objectives and experience as well.
Okay, so my objectives were learn business education from a very well-reputed school, build a network, change my career, meet some interesting people. I guess those are my objectives. In terms of the experience that I was hoping to have, well, very similar to Alberto, I think. Before joining, I knew I wanted to do an MBA from a good school. I figured that an exec MBA just made more sense just because I needed to continue working, and I just didn't feel like I fitted the profile age-wise, career stage-wise for a full-time MBA. So the EMBA program sounded exciting, quite daunting. I wasn't sure how I was going to juggle everything. So I think when I started, I was probably a bit terrified. I didn't really know what to expect or how on earth it would realistically work. Had a lot of hope. And then I remember on day one meeting everyone in our class and thinking, oh my gosh, there are all these people who just seem to be brilliant. I have no idea why they're even here. Their careers and lives seem so sorted. And so I probably started with a lot of excitement, hope, and a huge amount of trepidation. Yeah, no, sure. That was the beginning.
No, for sure. I mean, I think coming or maybe not being in a school for a while also makes him a bit like anxious about what's happening, given the intensity of the program itself. So yeah, I think it's something common to all the for all the applicants that we have. So Alberto, when you decided to join the masters, what kind of gaps did you think you will be able to fill in?
Yeah, well, first of all, the gaps are related to acquire the language that would allow me to be able to speak, let's say, at top management level. Okay, I was let's say, very well-rounded technically, but I didn't know anything about finance, economics, leadership, and what, let's say, is the way that you communicate and how a CEO thinks about it. I'm talking about CEO. I'm talking about, let's say, a higher level in the company when you to oversee everything, not one part of it only. And so definitely I was expecting that, and the master gave me those tools, certainly. And also regarding, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, to be honest. And as I said before, being surrounded by amazing people. I share what Akansha said about joining the first time and being surrounded by amazing people. And I felt like, wow, what am I doing here? I mean, will I ever be able to be like them? But then in reality, there is another reality behind, and you're all on the same boat, all of the same. You know? So, but we'll discuss about that, I guess.
No, for sure. I think, yeah, that probably my advice would be for everyone not to panic, because you both, as you said, are on the same boat with family commitments, working full time, still studying as well, and this travel back and forth to the campuses. So for sure, this is something that is common. Akansha, because we already touched a little bit about like the experience overall, you know, within your cohort, which new industries or perspectives you were exposed to, you know, either, you know, in the study group that you were part of, or like the overall class that help, you know, to shape your current experience that you have at the moment and knowledge as well.
Wow. So our class was just incredibly diverse. We had people from pretty much every industry conceivable. I mean, obviously for me, I was particularly interested in healthcare, and I could relate a lot to oil and gas. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of people from healthcare, not a lot, to be honest. There were a few people from oil and gas and energy, but there were people from all other walks of life, you know, from funds, from banking, from consulting, from real estate, from literally almost every sector that you can possibly think of. So I think for me, that was incredibly enriching, because initially I went in being very focused. Oh, you know, I need to meet people with a healthcare background. And then I found there were just a couple in our class. There are obviously a lot more in the broader LBS network, and I did speak to a ton of them. So that was still really helpful. But just in our class, it was just really mind blowing to just meet all these people who'd done all these different things, and to realize that, there's just such diversity. You get so many different ideas, and different people approach things in really different ways. So I think I just learned a lot by listening and asking questions, and it was also, just to be honest, exciting to just meet so many people that I would never otherwise have met. And I think in some ways it also helped me from a confidence perspective in two ways. One, because I just became more adept at talking to people from all sorts of different walks of life, but in a business capacity, which I'd never really had the opportunity or done before. And the second was that it then meant that when it came to talking about or understanding how business concepts fitted in, you could start relating them in ways I'd never thought of before. So for example, like in our corporate finance class, we learned about it with regards to, I think, a hospital, a football team. And so, you know, really, really broad sets of situations that you just wouldn't really think about. And I think that just made it just really interesting.
Okay, great. And Alberto, because of course the global program has this global perspective, and you already you have worked in different countries. I know some of those are like Germany, Netherlands, Spain, UK as well. What kind of like global exposure you were looking at, you know, to develop even more?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, definitely, as you say, I had already kind of European exposure. So definitely, I wanted to know how, and I specifically selected the Americas Europe program because I wanted to be exposed to the American way of, first of all, education, and also doing business, which are, I would say, a bit different from the American, let's say, the European ones. Of course, it's been, let's say, fantastic way for me to be exposed also not only to those, but also, for example, we had a program where there were classes in the Middle East through the schools, and then another one in Hong Kong, and then as Akansha was saying, of course, meeting so many nationalities, so many backgrounds in one class is just an opportunity that you don't have every day in your working environment. In your working environment, especially if you work in an industry, is surrounded by people more or less broadly with the same type of background, same type of expertise, more expert, less expert, but that. When you find yourself in a class with 70 plus people with different backgrounds, it's just incredible, the learning curve. For me personally, was also I was quite confident in certain subjects, maybe in others not, and therefore also within the same group school, let's say the working group as well, all this let's say expertise, and you have a limited amount of time for each subject. You don't have years to develop expertise like you do have a work. Therefore, you know, it's a massive learning curve in let's say in a very short time.
Okay, you know, no, for sure. And we have a question that might fit, you know, in the discussion that we have, you know, from your global perspective. We have a question here from Kevin saying that his focus is into healthcare and has been in the United States based. However, he thinks that he is interested to get this global perspective. And what do you think would be the advantages of LBS in Colombia to provide, you know, this global perspective that he's looking for?
I mean, I would say it's a genuinely global program. So as Alberto mentioned, there are people from our class with, I think we were like, 65 people and something like 57 nationalities or something. So it is, you meet a lot of people from different places. Because of the sort of the program being based in London, being based in New York. And then also you have sort of study programs, electives in like Hong Kong, Dubai, and then you have informal class trips as well as treks through the school. So you end up going to a lot of different places, especially, and if you want to, you can go to even more. So you get a huge global perspective from a physical perspective and meeting people. Then in addition, there's the cases, those are based in all sorts of countries. So I remember doing like marketing cases or an operational case in Brazil, hair care. I remember, and then you know you have obviously cases in the US and Europe. You have them in all sorts of very different countries. Well, I say different, which is not necessarily different for everyone else, but for me, you know, I'd never been exposed to Brazilian hair care, so that was just totally different way of looking at things. And then, you know, we looked at things like Starbucks and just, so you look at cases from loads of different countries. And then the other thing I think not to be forgotten is that you're still part of the broader school. And especially if you can have some time in New York and in London during the program as well, but also, you know, in between the weeks, it's massively valuable. I went to almost, for the first couple of terms, I went to sessions almost every night at LBS when I was there and at CBS when I was there as well. And you just meet a ton of people from different countries, different industries. They have a lot of external speakers who come in who are just great. I actually ended up interviewing with one of them because I just got on with them and I was interested in seeing if it could be a good position for me afterwards. They didn't have a position, but I ended up having an interview anyway. And then there's also the network of alums, and you can literally just write to people. I wrote to 20 people I'd never met before or heard of, and I had chats with about 10 of them afterwards, and that really helped inform me where I wanted to move my career. So there's just an enormous panoply of people that you can talk to from different locations, different industries. It can be very informative.
Yeah, thank you. Alberto, do you want to add anything on that?
No, not much. I mean, I would just reiterate for me the power of the network indeed. You have had countless times that, but first of all, your immediate network, which is your classmates, that you could be, let's say, classmate with a person that is, let's say, in the same industry segment as you are, but in a different country. And so therefore there will be already an exchange of ideas there. But as Akansha said, there is mostly the network. You have access to the alumni network, which is, of course, unparalleled probably because of this joint nature of the program. And then you can access all of a sudden like around 80,000 people. Probably that was the number a few years ago, maybe now it's extended actually, network. And people are extremely helpful because it's one of the traits of human nature that we tend to help each other. And even more if actually we belong to we have a same common background. And doing the same school is a hugely strong, let's say, background that is common among people. Therefore, there is a tendency to help a lot.
Yeah, and you both mentioned the networking part, and of course you have the networking within your cohort, but you also have the chance to network with the other programs, for instance. And as you might know, speaking on LBS side, we also have the regular EMBA program. And I have here a question, you know, what made you consider the global and not the regular EMBA? What do you think would be like the differences between them from your student perspective?
So I looked at both. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh,
no, please, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I looked at both. I originally was planning to apply for the London program. It felt like it was more realistic, logistically, but I was sort of interested by the global one, so I thought I would just explore that a bit as well. And I think the London program is a great program, and there are a lot of commonalities as well. I think what appealed to me about the global one was I did wonder about moving to the US or working in the US, and I felt I'd have more exposure through the school. I was quite excited about going to an Ivy school. I'm a bit of an academic snob, so that sort of appealed to me as well as like an addition to LBS. I think so yes, it was just yeah. So I think that's probably the main thing from my side.
Yeah.
From my side, very similar. At the end, it's London Business School was always for me living in London well before actually I applied for London Business School. I came to an information session for the normal EMBA London, and then I got some information about the EMBA Global that made me think, well, it would be just a dream if I could attend that because of the let's say American side, and at the end it was actually what happened. So definitely the attraction of studying in the US, Ivy League school, obviously don't deny, but actually the dual nature of it, European American.
Yeah, no.
Actually, one more thing, sorry, that I forgot to say earlier was I don't know if it's still done now, but in our day we could actually go to lectures and meet the current classes. And so I sat in on a London class, EMBA class, and a global class. And for me, what actually made me think I really want to make this dream come true was that in the global class, everyone I spoke to, they'd all had a background which I could really resonate with. So for me, my family background is Indian. I've grown up in the UK. I've always felt quite European. I love languages, and everyone in the global program is like that. Everyone has at least a couple of countries in their blood or in their life, and so I think that was, for me, that really resonated. A lot of my life I'd sort of felt like I didn't always fit in because I kind of belonged to more than one place, and a lot of people in the global program belong to more than one place, or they're interested in multiple places, and so I think that for me was a very powerful reason to feel like actually that was the right fit for me.
Yeah, no, great. And then there's like another question still related to that, what if we find like any difference in the profile of the cohort and experience. I could say that from the recruitment and admissions perspective, because I've been in EMBA London as well, working before transitioning to EMBA Global. I think the profiles are quite similar, but then with the EMBA Global is I think the international experience is also something that we ask for, and we are looking to, of course, to assess that in the application and also in the interview session. But overall, the average years of experience is kind of the same, around 11, 12 years of experience. And then the profiles are diverse, of course, for both programs. But again, as I said, the global perspective on the EMBA Global program is much more intense because we have, profiles from all over the world preferring to choose the global program. Okay, great. Now let's just move to the classes, so the actual experience that you have had. Alberto, what did you learn in the core classes? And how can you apply, the information that you got there on your current job, for instance?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the most relevant subjects that I still use now are, well, economics. Let's say the first economic class and also the second one towards the end of the core. Both of them are very, very important. And then definitely all the corporate finance part. Now, I had zero knowledge before. But then, of course, you go through the accounting and then especially corporate finance, which is a bit more applicable, valuation, etc., which is very important now for what I do. And then finally, the strategy class to give, let's say, the perspective of strategy from, let's say, a senior management position perspective. Okay, so these are the core classes that really are very useful for me now.
Yeah, Akansha, would you like to take this one as well?
Yeah, sure. So for me, corporate finance and accounting were helpful just to build my financial knowledge, acumen. That I still use those now. Not in huge amounts of depth, but it does help. I found marketing and statistics pretty helpful. We do a fair bit of analysis, and I ended up just terms that I wasn't used to using, things like conjoint analysis, just various things. We use them sort of more routinely, so it just made it a bit easier. I find those quite useful. I found negotiation incredibly helpful. I was an appalling negotiator. I wouldn't say I'm brilliant now, but I learned a huge amount from the class. I found the strategy classes interesting and helpful. They gave sort of examples, case studies, but probably there wasn't so much there, which was quite so new for me. I also found a couple of the leadership classes really valuable. Leadership, change management classes, they helped me to realize that there's both a qualitative and a quantitative element that you can integrate for some of those subjects, which I hadn't previously appreciated. I'd only really seen them in a qualitative way before. So I found that helpful. And yeah, I think similar to Alberto, economics, it was just learning the language really of economics helped. I wasn't so familiar with that, and it did help in terms of understanding things like supply and demand, which I guess, yeah, I use a lot more now than I did before.
Yeah, and I think this is great to mention here that even though we might have, let's say, around 20-30% of the class coming with a finance background, all the others, they don't have it, but they still manage with in the programs. So this is still something that shouldn't scare like anyone, and shouldn't be, as a challenge not to submit the application and join the program, of course. Alberto, which faculty members inspired you the most, and why? Why did this happen?
So I remember actually a leadership class, indeed, in the core. Definitely Professor Ingram inspired a lot because, of course, of the every class was a new discovery about myself, about organizations, about, let's say, the interaction between humans and how this actually can influence achieving results, building up a team, and everything, let's say, that is actually very important as a fundament in life, in professional life as well, but also, let's say, in common relationships among people, with your partner and with your friends as well. And then another class that actually negotiations, definitely negotiation class. I've done the one at Columbia Business School, but I heard the same actually for the London Business School one. That was really, let's say, eye-opener for many people in terms of how to actually, I wouldn't say, I had before the concept of negotiation as something that you have to win at all costs. There is a different meaning and much more profound, which is actually what's the best win-win for both parties. You should never have the feeling that, let's say, the one part actually wins over the other. It's not a win competition. It's actually creating value for both. Okay. And then the last one for me was as well the brand management in London Business School. Was fantastic actually. I learned a huge amount, and for some reason I thought was actually completely, let's say, not really well averse to that subject, but it came so natural. It was fantastic, so I loved it, and credit to the professor as well.
Great. And did you actually have the chance to develop some kind of relationships with faculty members throughout the course?
Yeah, with several of them. I remember with indeed Professor in brand management as well, with Professor Nico Sava as well. So there are, of course, there are some professors, let's say, that are more open to, but even the professor of strategy as well. It was actually person that I really have fond memories, in general, because I come from studying in Italy, and professors in Italy are perceive themselves like, okay, deal with me at arm's length. It's very different actually when and that's also one of the reasons why I chose to study a lot of this school in Colombia, because then you can actually see the professor, and then there is this passion for teaching to students. That actually you want to go and talk to the professor and understand more about the subject, and you become passionate as well. The passion that comes through, which I didn't experience in my previous, let's say, education.
No, that this is something, that we like to say about faculty members. I think what you said like before is linked to the fact that they they are professors, but they also have actual jobs, you know, in the market. So they have, they go into the market, they explore the markets, and then they bring all the expertise, all the business cases, you know, into the classroom. I think this makes it more realistic and you know, up to date with everything. So yeah, thank you so much, you know, for this overview. Akansha, did you, of course you chose some electives, but what kind of electives did you choose, and why did you choose those specific electives? Because this is something you can adapt to your, you know, career goals, to what you want to do in the future.
Yeah, sure. So electives, I don't remember all of my electives now, I have to admit, but so some of the ones that stood out. So I did a couple in strategy, strategic agility, corporate turnarounds, which were just really useful, as I said, in terms of, you know, building stories and anecdotes and techniques to take to sort of the strategy table. I also did brand management. That was great. I'd never really thought about the subject before, and we just did some really cool things there. You know, we had to sort of go into shops and just figure out what we could interpret about the brand from just entering the store, and it just taught me to think about brand in a whole new way. So that was great. I did Businesses and Careers of the Future with Linda Grattan. That actually gave me some really nice ways to think about my long-term career, things which I still use now on a regular basis, and ways of prioritizing and balancing and manage life at work, etc. I also really loved management, leadership of organizational change with Professor Ingram. So one of my electives was that I wrote a case with him, which I think actually gets taught to some of the global classes or some of the EMBA classes occasionally. So that was super fun as well. And I also did a couple of industry specialist ones. So I did like a healthcare specific elective, and I did one of the Asian economics classes because I really wanted to go to Hong Kong and I wanted to learn a bit more about the business situation in Asia, and I'd never worked there, so I did one of those, which was super exciting.
Great. No, that's great to hear. And Alberto, you, I think you mentioned before that there were like many networking events, many guest speakers coming to talk to you and so on. Did you come across any impressive guest speaker throughout the program?
Yeah, I remember some of them, and I was actually added to my impressive, let's say, experience at the two schools. So we met the CEO of Ocado, Tim Steiner, came as a guest speaker for the operations management class. Then I think it was with the statistics class, I think we met with the founder of Capital One, Nigel Morris. And then not to mention all the events and let's say the speakers that our classmates organized events as well, such as, for example, we went to see the behind the scenes of the Madison Square Gardens. We went inside the Gherkin in London up to the top, which is only, let's say, for guests. So there were, of course, this is the power of the network and also the faculty. So these are some of the examples that I remember, but there are many others actually.
Of course. Akansha, do you have anything in mind? Did you remind you of anyone specific?
So I agree with Alberto. We met a ton of amazing speakers in the program, outside of the program at clubs, and the professors are also like pretty inspirational. The way they teach is just incredible. So that was something. But I think beyond actually speakers, we sometimes got introduced to an alternative kind of speaker. So for example, we went to watch a jazz trio play one day, and sort of learnt about the concepts of leadership through that. Also watched a quartet. So we sort of experienced some alternative forms of speakers which were just as educational and inspiring, I think.
Yeah, and wow, that's amazing to hear. I didn't hear that before. So I think, you're also trying to mingle, with social and with academic as well. So just to please everyone, and not to always be maybe, rushing to do this, to do the seminar, to do this project, do this assignment. So yeah.
No, we had to write assignments on the jazz trio and the quartet afterwards. So it was very academic. It was deeply academic.
But at least
we had to learn about the
well.
balance between improvisation and leadership all at the same time. It was really cool.
Yeah, but at least the experience, per se, maybe wasn't, very, maybe very intense. But afterwards, of course, yeah, assignments are something that we have to do. Okay, great. So I know many people are asking, how do you balance a full-time job, studying, the traveling, personal commitments as well. How do you find this balance? Alberto, if you want to go first.
Yeah, so it is, let's say, it is something that you have to be prepared for. You apply for this type of program. That it's not going to be a walk in the park. And that I'm making, let's say, more a broad concept, not only about traveling, which takes its toll, let's say, in terms of jet lags and everything, but is about as well the time commitment for studying, and then you have a full-time job, most probably, and then some people have family, maybe with newborn babies. We have all these examples in class, and people can cope with that. You will be amazed how much this program will challenge your personal abilities and stretch them, but in a ways that is still sustainable because it can be done. Regarding the travel, yeah, definitely. In my case, being in London, obviously that decreases to half the travels. That's also for me, it would, let's say, it was sustainable enough. But to give an example, one of my classmates came from Melbourne every month. From Melbourne to London or to New York every month. And I remember we were like amazed by how are you going to do that? I mean, for 3 days you're traveling basically. But this is actually tells you a lot about the caliber of people and the commitment of people that attend the course. So it definitely can be achieved and managed.
Wow, that's a big one. I heard another example on the EMBA London class. Again, we had like a student who was told that he's going to be moved to London, but by the time the program started, this didn't happen. So he had to travel every 2 weeks to London, and it's a big commitment. It's something that people are passionate to do, and they take this challenge. Akansha, what about you?
Yeah, I really agree with Alberto. You have to, you do have to do a level of preparation up front, like preparing your boss, your team, your family, so that people know that you're not going to be as physically available as you normally are. And you do really need to get the buy-in of people at work, because I think without it would be impossible to do this program. So I think that is super important. Then I think as you go, I think one needs quite an agile approach, because you don't fully know what you're getting yourself into until you get in, and then you kind of realize, okay, there's the time during the course, but there's also the time outside the course to socialize with your classmates when you're in the same city, and then there's the time that you need to just get your assignments done and do your reading, which also takes time, and then there's all the extra stuff if you want to do it at the school to really make the most of the school experience, and so you kind of need a bit of an agile approach. I personally stopped watching trashy television. Like, I realized that made me enormously. So you become a lot more efficient, multitask a lot, plan a lot better. Yeah, get support from people around you. Collaborate a lot with your classmates as well. That really helps. And also just don't be too tough on yourself. As Alberto said, a lot of people have managed to do this and make it work. I think it's probably harder if you have a child. Personally, I'm not sure how. I don't know how people managed it. A lot of people do, but I don't know how. But I think that it is very doable. A lot of people can do it. There's a lot of support, and just don't beat yourself up about being perfect on everything. But as long as you're good enough on most things, you can get by.
Yeah, and you are both, sorry, just to one thing, you are both like the real examples, that this, can happen. They can do the program. So anyone, no matter, that the commitments is something that anyone can do, just to be, as you said, organized, to know how to organize their time and everything else. Yeah, Alberto, you wanted to add something.
No, just saying, let's say a personal example. I remember at the beginning of the course, being, let's say, a bit difficult to start thinking about studying and working at the same time. So that type of, let's say, of a learning curve. And then when I got the momentum right, where I could find my balance between studying and working, then as Akansha said, you become very efficient. You know, you just scroll through a lot of material very quickly, and you become able, because you have to survive, you have to be able to develop that type of skill. And when I finished the program, I remember finding myself with so much time in my hands, because I'm used to it. So okay, now the evenings are free, and then that's one of the things that you have to be able, let's say, not to go back to your old habits of wasting time. But that's, you know, that's one of the lessons from the MBA as well. Starting the new routine and continuing with that day by day, little by little.
Okay,
great. The application process actually helps a little bit, I found, with that, because like I hadn't studied maths or anything for like years, and so just doing the GMAT, writing the essays, I actually found it was quite helpful, because it kind of gets the brain back into the cycle. Quite good prep for doing the program itself.
No, yeah, that's a really good point. It's actually why we ask all our applicants to go through this application process, to do either the GMAT or the executive assessment or the GRE, because we use it like mostly as like a preparation tool for them, just to see what they send, you know, academically speaking, and also to prepare them, you know, for this intensive course that is following after that. Great. So let's move forward to what you are doing at the moment. Alberto, what has been the biggest transformation for you after the program?
Mm-hmm. I think I became more self-aware on, let's say, my potential, my abilities, my shortcomings as well. I had to measure myself with people with different nationalities, obviously, backgrounds, very talented. And so it made me realize how much, let's say, ground I had to cover to, let's say, be a better full-rounded professional. And so these are the things that these 2 years gave me. Personal growth above anything else. Of course, you have the hard skills, you know, what you learn in the core, etc. But it's really personal growth. And the realization that, as I said before, we can stretch our abilities so much more compared to what our jobs demand every day, and in very different ways.
Yeah, Akansha, would you like to take this one as well?
Yeah, I think Alberto put it really well. I think personal growth is probably the one thing I probably hadn't anticipated, but the biggest learning that came out of the whole program. I sort of went in looking for the kind of the tick box things. You know, you change your job, you get a certain knowledge, you get a network, and I think those were transformational for me for sure. But I think more importantly was learning how to work in a different way, learning to work in a truly global community. And I think also almost the idea that of really seeing potential and the potential for oneself, and realizing that actually horizons which felt very limiting before actually don't have to be. And that's partly because you get exposed to so much, and so much suddenly seems possible, but it's also because you have a group of classmates who are just a real support structure, and they really believe in you. And so there were times when I was nervous about doing things, and my class was like, "Oh, you can absolutely do this. You've got this. Go for it." And that I think is incredibly reassuring, and it continues even now. So we have a chat with our class and a group, and a couple of people have just started new ventures this week, and everyone is just like so excited. It's like it's our personal ventures, and so I think that actually was a big thing for me as well. Transformationally, it kind of removed barriers, both physical and both real ones and the invisible ones in my head.
Great. And because we didn't talk about it, how did like the career center, the careers team, helped you, make this, the transitions and get the role that you have at the moment? Alberto, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I accessed both the career centers, let's say both in this case, Columbia and London Business School. And there were a lot of events, and they made me, of course, realize it's part of that growth process. Where you think maybe you come in with an idea and then you go out with another one, because of course you realize there are so many other facets to the same, let's say, approach problem. This was actually for me the big takeaway learning. Then of course there are a lot of opportunities for let's say to application for jobs, and then also with if I remember, with Columbia Business School as well, there are ways that you can actually do but also with London Business School. You can have mock-up interviews, you can prepare for interviews, etc. So there is a myriad really of opportunities that you can grasp. The question is, do you have enough time to do all of that, or do you just select and say what's most important for you? For me as well, and not only the Career Center, but also again the alumni network, talking to people, you connect to another one, and then connect to another one, etc. And then by talking to people in the industry that you would like to enter or you are interested in actually, then you have a real understanding. And so it makes you realize, yeah, it's not what I want to do, and I want to stay in what I do because of certain reasons.
Thank you. Akansha, would you like to add on that?
Yeah, similar. So I was actually a careers rep for the class. So I felt almost an obligation to experiment with every single element of the sort of the careers portfolio in LBS and CBS. I found the careers coaches really helpful. They helped me sort out my CV, which was a mess, and they helped me tailor it for both geographies and for different industries. They also, I spoke specifically to coaches in who focus on consulting as well, just to get the sort of the skinny on different sectors, and also to help me sort of negotiate some of the interviews and think about things in terms of prep. That was really helpful. Also leveraged one of the career coaches even after during the course of the program, but after I changed jobs, just to sort of give me informal coaching and guidance and things on like leadership topics, etc. Leverage a lot of the clubs and the alumni network too. So the clubs, I think you meet a lot of people. You can explore if you're not really sure what you want, or if you just have general ideas, and go very broad. And then you can start going very deep in specific companies, especially if any of the companies or industries that you're looking at are of interest to the full-time MBA program. Then you've got an enormous amount of activities and openings which you can leverage. I did go to some of the careers events where you actually just meet people who have positions, etc. They weren't necessarily so relevant for me, but I did make some good contacts. And then just reaching out to alumni network, I wrote to a lot of people. A lot of people made time, gave me advice on what things to consider in terms of career options. A couple also they generally offer to share your CV or look for jobs for you. So there's there are a lot of different avenues, and it doesn't stop when you leave the program either. So I still come into contact with folks from LBS and CBS now in my job, and people reach out and say, hey, were you? And so that's always handy. Plus, I think if and when I move jobs next, I would definitely reach out to alumni or to the career service at LBS and CBS, because they're just great resources, and they don't end when you leave the schools.
No.
Yeah, no, this is an advantage. I think that we have, that they offer you help, throughout the program, but also after you graduate. So it's a lifelong journey, as we like to call it. And Akansha, we have a question from one of our attendees. Do you utilize alumni community in your current job?
I'm not so I would say I utilize it. But I definitely have quite a few. There are loads of alumni from CBS and LBS in our company, and so we definitely cross paths, and it's kind of a nice link or a nice talking point. I do mentor people who want to, more junior people who want to go to business schools, and support them with their applications and references. So it's actually quite handy to have been through the process, which a full-time MBA person would have gone through as well, because you can really relate and be a sponsor and an advisor in a way that would be harder without this. So that's good. Beyond that, I wouldn't say that I necessarily use it so much in my current job. It's more that I'm still in touch with all my classmates. So, that's more just a personal thing, which is important for me.
And in a nutshell, Alberto, do you think the EMBA Global helped you to improve your leadership skills and make you like an impactful leader?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened in reality, and I think the EMBA Global really gave me those, let's say, helped me improve those skills, because I still remember I did a 360 let's say assessment before starting, and I was quite shocked when I read the feedback from people. I did not realize, I was not self-aware of what my shortcomings or what my point of strength. So I went through the program, and with the same mentor that gave me the real feedback at the beginning. And after a few years, I finished, to be honest, not immediately after. And he told me that I changed very much, especially in my empathy skills and the leadership skills, how I come across when in my communication and let's say when I want to convey my message as well. And also the approach to work, for example, that is much more, let's say, composed, and with the idea that I'm not the only one doing the job. I have to tap into the network around me, the people around me, to help me do a better job, which actually automatically you have to get this leadership skill to come out and make use of them.
Great, thank you. And now, because we only have like 4 minutes left of the session, just some final questions, in your alumni perspective. Would you do anything different if you look back now on the experience that you have had, either like, spending your time differently, interacting maybe with other people, or maybe something that you could have done, but you couldn't do it in that moment? Akansha, if you want to go first.
I think the only two things I would say, I don't have that many regrets. I try to make the most of the program when I did it, but I think two things I would tell myself by doing it again were worry less. It's doable. Everyone in the program is in the same boat as you, even if people who feel like they've got everything figured out. Everyone's there for a reason. And so I think I would tell myself to just worry a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would do is make even more time to go on more trips and things with the class. I did a few. I wish I could have done more. At the time, it was hard to do more, but and I thought I shouldn't, or you could take time out of work or whatever. And in retrospect, I think it's a short amount of time, so you kind of have to make the most of all the opportunities. You take them a bit for granted at the time, but it's a really special opportunity to have. We only get it once.
Yeah. Thank you, Alberto.
Well, exactly the same point. To be honest, I'm an engineer by background, so I approached that, let's say, very much kind of engineering way, and I dedicated a lot of time, of course, to classes, studying, and try to, let's say, cover the shortcomings. I did a few trips, but definitely is one of the things I would say if I would go back, I would change. I would definitely go to more trips. And your classmates want to host you in their country, and there are sometimes countries that you don't have opportunity to go in life normally. So just take it, because it's just fantastic. You learn a huge amount. It opens your mind. And then, okay, you may say it costs a bit of money, or maybe cost a bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, the time you study a bit more, the week after. The money, you do the program anyway, and then you will make money in the future, but you don't make time that you didn't spend before with your classmates in this trip. So take these opportunities. They are fantastic, and they come once in a lifetime, really.
Great, thank you. Great advice. And for any prospective students, or maybe already admits for this current class that is will start in May, what should one really consider, when going, back to school to pursue an executive MBA degree?
I would say two things. I would say have an approximate idea of what you want to get out of it, because there are so many options and so many opportunities, and if you try and do everything, you might run yourself into the ground. So at least have some big objectives, and then you can do other things as well, but that will, at least then you'll know you've done the main things you set out for. The other thing I would say is just really lay the groundwork with everyone around you. So before you get going, invest the time with all of them, and so that you're set up for success for when you start the program, because you won't have quite as much time for people at work, people in your personal life, and you will need their support as well through the program. So setting both yourself and themselves up for success will make your time at the program easier. And also then just have fun. It kind of gives you the world. It's an amazing time. Just make the most of it.
Great. Alberto?
Yeah, similar. Of course, this program is a financial commitment, but also a time one. So you need to want it and to desire it. I'm sure that that's the case if you apply for this. Let's say you don't know exactly what you will be going through, but you will find your way, and you're confident that you will find your way. You need the motivation to go through difficult times sometimes, to juggle between family, work, etc. You know, sometimes your boss is maybe is not happy because last week you weren't there, therefore he asks you to work more the week after, but you also have to study. The family, involve your family in the journey, because it will help you a lot, and it is also a way to get them, let's say, to appreciate what you're doing, to meet your classmates, to travel with you maybe. It's 2 years, you know, 2 hard years, and so if you do it with your family or with people that you care most, then it's becoming more fun as well.
Great. Thank you so much, both. It's been a pleasure, you know, having you here. And for sure, I think we'll be in touch, you know, for any other future events and anything else we are planning. For the S&Ds, thank you as well for you know, participating, listening to Alberto and Akansha. And just a little reminder that you will receive an email with a survey, and we would like to ask you to complete it if possible, just to, you know, get a sense of what kind of improvements we can do with our events, and so on. And again, if you're interested in the EMBA Global program, feel free to reach to myself at embaglobal@london.edu, and I'll be more than happy now to have a further conversation with you. So thank you so much, and have a good afternoon.
Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot again.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.